that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you're lusting is the one you're loving?
I spent a lot of time, deep thought about how we got here, and pulling that thread of history, but also recent history. I feel like we don't spend enough time in study. And I think that Elon Musk is a classic case of the emperor has no clothes, but yet we keep saying he does, and then it becomes fact, right? And we are in that fact finding out space where I feel like there's no going back, but we can at least examine this man has so much power that he is controlling the Ukrainian Russian conflict because he has gifted Ukraine for a period of time the internet and then took it away because he valued Russia more. And the piece goes in on to how Russia's an integral part of his Tesla SpaceX business, but we'll get to that in a second. Before we went to break, I was telling you where he grew up in South Africa, which is known for apartheid, which is known for minority rule and racism at its finest. Again, modeling Nuremberg laws of Germany and Jim Crow laws of America. For so many years, we talk about Nelson Mandela, but we talk about the children of apartheid. Well, Elon Musk is that. So he moved with his mom to Canada, went to school there, and then came to United States, where he went to University of Pennsylvania, moved to California in 1995, went to Stanford, dropped out of Stanford. I think he spent like 2 days at Stanford. He dropped out with his brother Kimball, and they founded a city guide, online city guide software company called Zip2. The startup was then acquired by Compaq for $307 million in 99. So 4 years after founding a company, he walked away with $12 million. I think he and his brother, they ended up splitting like $25 million. That same year, he co-founded something called X. Does that sound familiar? X.com, which was a direct bank. X.com then merged with Confinity in 2000 to form PayPal. How many of you are using PayPal? In 2002, eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion. That same year, with the $100 million that he made, he founded SpaceX. There's that X again. He's obsessed with the X. 2004, he became an early investor in Tesla. So he didn't found Tesla. He didn't create Tesla. He wasn't the genius behind Tesla. He invested in Tesla, which you could invest in. Don Calloway probably has invested in. I could invest in. Just have to have enough money. How did he get his money? He started a little company with his brother, sold that, then started another company, sold that and then that became PayPal. And then he had enough money to invest in Tesla. Now, here's where the Russian thing comes in, and China, actually. A facility in Shanghai produces half of Tesla's cars. So Shanghai produces half of the Teslas that you all drive. And Musk depends on the goodwill of China, who is in league with Russia. So they're on the side of Russia. So are you going to piss off the people that you need to produce your cars? So if you have to shut down your satellite to appease your partner, you don't care geopolitically about the Ukrainians or the Russians, for that matter. You care about your pockets. That's capitalism. Musk recently acknowledged that Beijing disapproved of his decision to provide internet service to Ukraine and sought assurances that he would not deploy similar technology in China, which he, of course, agreed to. Don, as you hear me, read from this amazing piece, what thoughts go through your head?
Yeah, I think it's important to contextualize who he is, and I think you touched on some extremely important points. Child of an apartheid state, child of an extraordinarily wealthy jewel mining family. So all of the exploitation and all of the colonization is in his blood and has in fact created the basis of everything he's ever done or created, right? Um, Came here and invested in Tesla, found a way to take it from the owners, the original founders, did not create the idea of electric cars or batteries or anything else, is not some incredible coder. And because he has been doggedly attached to concepts of capitalism with his deeply white supremacist roots, he now has vested in him the wealth of nations that allows him to participate as a singular figure in multilateral, multinational, global conflicts. That should be exhibit A, case number one, for why this experiment has gone far too far. And we have to have some universe of reining in. Imagine Idi Amin having amassed that much wealth that would never be permitted by the collective Western world leadership, right? And so, I think it's also important to show that the military industrial complex is global and capitalization is global, such that there is no military operation that is free from an extraordinary wealth creation piece, an extraordinary commercial piece, and those things are never detached, right? And so we see an armed conflict that is being determined by who stands to make money off of it. People are dying every day in Ukraine because Elon Musk needs to make another dollar. The last thing I'll say is Elon Musk absolutely understands what is at stake here by him shutting off effectively internet access to, or deeply hindering internet access to Ukraine. We have known for at least 13 years now, since the Arab Spring of 2010, the role of internet, and specifically Twitter, but more importantly, internet, in creating spaces for democracy and liberation to occur globally. The Arab Spring happened, Ferguson happened because, and it happened faster, to Trayvon Martin, activism around that, Sandra Bland, these things happen. Liberative activity happens because of open access to a free and fair used internet. That is, regardless of the platform you choose to use, Elon Musk absolutely knows he is shutting down democratic movement by taking away his SpaceX internet access from Ukraine. And so it shows that he has no interest in democracy. He has no interest in, we think he doesn't care about black folks or black Twitter.
Right.
He has no interest in
about
humanity.
nobody.
He
Right,
don't
that part.
Right? He has no interest in
Yes.
humanity. And so we are seeing those interests served in real time because he has chosen oligarchy and communist fascism over a free and liberated Ukraine, which is wild that we have vested the power in one man to make that decision, a decision of that magnitude.
Well, we can go all the way back because I was actually in the newsroom working on the editorial page of the Daily News when Colin Powell's son removed the restrictions on wealthy people to have more than one medium in one market. And I remember it like it was yesterday because it was like the shot heard around the world that none of us, can say that we protested, right? This should have been like a real up in arms when Rupert Murdoch was given the right to own a newspaper, radio station, and television station network in one market, New York. Mm-hmm. And then that opened the door for everybody. And then we got the consolidation, and even in publishing, the fact that there was a big six, now there's a big four. The government stepped in when I think Random Penguin tried to buy Simon & Schuster recently because it's too much power in one hand. And yet privately, we have one business, actually two, because I'm going to put Jeff Bezos in the same position because he owns the Washington Post. He owns all of the mother freaking servers, right? And he has a space program too, which probably has the same satellite abilities, but no one's really talking about him. And then let's put maybe Bill Gates in there, who owns all of the land. Like there's something happening right now that we don't talk about while we're busy, sussing out whether we're going to call ourselves black or not. It may not even matter. Okay. I'm going to read something else about from this piece. It's called Elon Musk's Shadow Rule. So that means he actually is the head of the government, right? This is Ronan Farrow. He said, Musk has said that he has Asperger's syndrome. He has said, we don't know that that's a fact, a form of what is now known as autism spectrum disorder, which is characterized by difficulty with social interactions. As a child, it goes, he would sometimes fall into trance-like states, and during which he would be so unresponsive that his mother eventually took him to the doctor to check his hearing. His quiet side persists in my interactions with him. This is Ronan Farrow writing. I have found him to be thoughtful and measured. He can also be, as he joked during a stilted Saturday Night Live monologue, pretty good at running human in emulation mode. He said Musk escaped into science fiction and video games. How many of you have children or yourselves? He said, one of the reasons I got into technology, maybe the reason, was video games. That's telling to me, because video games are one of the most toxic spaces that many parents don't even know how toxic they are, where children are doing some horrific things with their earbuds in, with one another on these, these video game spaces. He said at a gaming industry convention, he said in his early teens, Musk coded an 8-bit shooter game in the style of Space Invaders called Blaster, and he titled it ER Musk. And the premise was mission destroy alien fighters carrying deadly hydrogen bombs and status beam machines. He won some awards for this video game that he produced. And he talks about science fiction influences. This is where I want to go. Isaac Asimov's Foundation novels, and I'm watching Foundation on Apple, whose characters grapple with a mathematically precise prediction of their civilization's collapse, to his obsession with ensuring human survival beyond Earth, which is the space part, right? Some of Musk's touchstones present ironies. He said that his hero is Douglas Adams, the writer who skewered both the hyper-rich and the progress at any cost ethos that Musk has come to embody. And in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy novels, some of you know what this is, the latter of which broadcasts in South Africa, where he grew up. The protagonist is a narcissistic playboy who becomes the president of the galaxy, and Earth is demolished to make way for a space transit route. Elon Musk is now a fan of Deus Ex. There's the X again, a role-playing first-person shooter video game. He's immersed in this space. In the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the fact that he's aligned with this notion of the world, and he wants to be the one, it is written in here, to save the world, but only he can save it. This level of narcissism, we've seen it. We just saw it recently with Trump presidency, and before that, maybe Hitler, maybe before that, some other people. How do we combat this? Because it is controlling you. I mean, you want to get your Twitter page back because the interaction is so valuable. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I don't think you can control this with unchecked capitalism, because part of unchecked capitalism is not only the power that he is able to amass, but it is telling people that he is a man who should be admired and respected for having amassed this wealth, regardless of what purposes he fundamentally uses it for, right? Regardless of, Elon Musk is interesting because you don't even have to have the conversation like you were doing about our young brothers and sisters in the rap game who didn't build up the block in Baltimore. You don't even have to have the conversation of what he could have done. You can have the conversation of look at what you're actually doing, like real world, real time damage to global stability, right? And so there's no even discussion of the good he could bring about, which is one of the more interesting aspects. Oprah opens a school in South Africa and our people say, yeah, well, why you ain't do it in Harlem? Yes, well, there's space and there's room for it all, and she might eventually get there. But we don't even have those criticisms of Elon Musk because he is objectively using his powers and his wealth for immediate evils, right? But he can only do that because of what you talked about in the earlier hour, which is the mythology of this country that we have built up. And a tremendous part of that mythology is that wealth, and even the wealth of nations, is merited and is given out equally, and that we all have opportunity to achieve that same amount of wealth. When there is no universe in which we do. Again, Elon Musk came from a billionaire's family, a diamond mine, right? No Trumper, no MAGA, you don't have an opportunity to amass the wealth that Elon Musk has, right? He came from an apartheid state and was sitting on a diamond mine. That's how he is who he is today. And
I think it was emeralds, but I just, point of clarification, because those are actually more valuable, more rare than diamonds. Diamonds aren't that rare. Actually.
Sure. No, and so, Elon Musk is an absolute anomaly, but the challenge is if you create a generation who worship Elon Musk and man boys of his own peer age who worship Elon Musk, then you will be dealing with Elon Musk's in your county who are worth $50 million and therefore think they can treat anybody any kind of way and have bought off the police and have bought off the public school teachers. You're going to be dealing with Elon Musk. There's a billionaire in every city. And so we have to be careful about what we reward as a society, right? Because all of us participate in a system that continues to make Elon Musk richer. We have not divested from his systems, despite the fact that we know he's a pretty putrid soul, right? We continue to enrich him. We continue to contribute to his wealth, which, whether we want to or not, is rewarding him for abhorrent behavior. And so, again, I think capitalism is a problem, but that's not only the localization of wealth, it's also the mindset that we have elevated people who are unmitigatedly bad folks just because they have a dollar or two.
Amen. And I feel like this goes beyond, if we're just looking in our individual communities, we can see how that's playing out, and we should require more. You don't get to represent us or be a quote unquote leader just because you're popular or you sold a lot of records, or we like how you talk on social media or whatever. I feel like there should be more substance, and Elon Musk is a man with very little substance as a human being, but all of the wealth and power. I was also, wanted to bring this conversation up to talk about how we combat this, how we organize around it, how we, bear responsibility for the things that we both ingest and then promote and produce outwardly. And there was this thing rolling around. Saul Alinsky made a lot of, and this is for you, Don, because you were in this political space behind the scenes. Hillary Clinton and before that and during that, Barack Obama were accused of being acolytes of Saul Alinsky, right? And I remember that being a criticism during these campaigns. And I was like, let me see what this man actually was writing about, and why it was so radical, or why people were so upset about it. Was this in your, travails making the rounds of Saul Alinsky stuff?
Yeah, it was many years ago. You're talking about Saul Alinsky and the Weather Underground and all the folks who, were supposedly the radical liberal thinkers of that day. If you read Saul Alinsky, it's not much different than Frantz Fanon, The Wretched of the Earth,
That's
Black
right.
Faces, White Masks, all this type of stuff. And you realize that these were not radical thoughts. They were just so bold and educated and proper in being deeply interested in subverting the status quo of that day, that they were able to hold the Saul Alinskys of the world out as evil, or as people who would bring about the end of the country as we know it. And they were able to otherize leftist politicians with that. There's no evidence that Barack Obama and Saul Alinsky were friends. There's no evidence that Saul Alinsky, mentored Cory Booker. But, we often follow these red herrings of what the right is trying to let. It's critical race theory. It was critical race theory 2008, right? There was Jeremiah Wright, there was Saul Alinsky, and the guys in the Weather Underground who bombed the building in Chicago, right? There's no evidence that these people, as personalities or philosophies, have guide the governing philosophies or principles of anybody in the left. But we keep paying attention to these threats. It was Ebola once upon a time. There is going to be something to scare. It's the caravan at the border. There will always be some boogeyman concocted by the right to scare you, to generate actual fear into either winning elections or maintaining a very oppressive status quo.
Well, this is why I want to
those boogeymen of the last 20 years.
Well,
Willie Horton.
I just talked about a real boogeyman who's controlling wars and your actual movements here in Elon Musk, and his purchase of Twitter. I thought was to dismantle Twitter, but it's to use for this 2024 election and to open the gates of hell, keep the trolls and disinformation going. He was in the anti-vaxxing space as well. Like this man means you no good, and he only wants to be ultimate power. He wants to have ultimate control.
as she smiles and says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you're lusting is the one